The first splash on the lake that morning didn't come from my brand new electric jet ski. No, it came from a flailing mimosa glass that arced through the air like a heat-seeking missile and landed with a dramatic splash a few feet from shore. The thrower? Meredith, standing on her oversized deck like some sort of wine-soaked oracle, glaring at me through massive sunglasses beneath a sun hat so big it could pick up satellite signals. "That thing is unapproved," she screeched, her finger trembling with righteous fury as it pointed straight at my sleek, silent watercraft. Now, I should have ignored her. I really should have just kept gliding along, enjoying the perfect breeze and letting her blood pressure handle the rest. But something about the way she barked the word, unapproved, like it was a dirty word, made me smile. And that smile? That was the beginning of everything. Because what Meredith didn't know, what no one in that lakeside community knew, was that in less than a month, I would own the water she stood over. It all started on a peaceful Friday morning, the kind that could make you forget people invented spreadsheets and deadlines. The lake shimmered like it had just come back from a meditation retreat, birds chirped with harmony, and the breeze played flirtatiously with my coffee steam. I had recently moved into this HOA-controlled slice of paradise after selling my shares in a moderately successful tech startup. My plan was simple: live low, ride often, and stay out of drama. What I didn't account for was that my custom-built electric jet ski, a stealthy prototype called Whisper, would cause an HOA apocalypse. Whisper wasn't just a water toy. It was a next-gen, battery-powered marvel I'd helped design with an old buddy from Tesla. No noise, no gas, no pollution, just smooth, clean motion on the water. It looked like a Batmobile and purred like a cat that got into the cream. I was proud of it. The first few rides were uneventful. I waved to neighbors, got nods of approval, even a thumbs up from a guy named Bill who wore Hawaiian shirts year-round and claimed he'd once wrestled a raccoon off his dock. But the moment I glided past Meredith's McMansion, affectionately known by some locals as the Ministry of Petty Complaints, everything changed. She came stomping down her manicured lawn barefoot, mimosa in one hand, laminated document in the other, like she was about to serve me divorce papers. "That vehicle is not on the HOA-approved list," she barked. "I killed the engine." "This," I said, gesturing at Whisper. "It's electric. Silent. Clean. It's not standard," she snapped. "We only allow approved lakecraft. Yours isn't on the list." I blinked. "Because it doesn't make noise?" "Because it sets a bad precedent," she said, scanning me with the intensity of a TSA agent. "Chaos. Disruption." Now, I'm not the confrontational type, but there was something about her tone, like she was defending the sanctity of bath time from anarchists, that made my eye twitch. Still, I forced a smile and said, "Got it. Thanks for the heads up." But Meredith wasn't done. That evening, a fine showed up on my doorstep, $200 for violating Lakecraft Policy 17B. Attached was a letter, written in glitter pen and signed by the HOA's Compliance Committee, which I'm 98% sure consisted solely of Meredith and her third glass of Chardonnay. I thought it was a joke, a warning shot. So I went to the next HOA meeting with Whisper's spec sheet in hand, ready to explain how environmentally friendly and non-disruptive it was. I even brought cookies. Instead, I walked into a kangaroo court. Meredith led the meeting from a fold-out throne, flanked by two guys who looked like they had failed out of mall cop training. They handed me a 3-page complaint listing everything from excessive wake turbulence to technological intimidation. At one point, someone argued my jet ski could hack the lake's fish monitoring sensors. Yes, fish sensors. That's when it hit me. This wasn't about rules. This was personal. So I dug around. Turns out Meredith's husband, Bob, ran a sketchy jet ski rental business right out of their garage. Old, noisy, gas-powered monsters. No permits. No insurance. Just cash-only rentals to HOA buddies and weekend guests. Whisper wasn't just an upgrade, it was a threat. The HOA hearing ended with a warning: use the jet ski again and they'd pursue enforcement. One board member even mouthed the word tow. That night, I sat on my dock, drinking a beer and watching the sun paint gold streaks across the water. My neighbor Bill wandered over and leaned on the railing. "You know the HOA doesn't own the lake, right?" he said. I turned. "What?" "Just the land around it." "The water?" "Different story. Check into water rights." So I did. What followed was a legal rabbit hole that would have made a conspiracy theorist weep with joy. After days of digging, I found that the lake was a privately held body of water, and the water rights? Still owned by a retired cattle rancher in Montana who hadn't set foot in the state in a decade. A few emails. One long call. A large payment. And just like that, I owned the water. The next morning, with a fresh cup of coffee and the confirmation email from the county registrar, I stepped onto my dock and looked toward Meredith's place. She was already outside, clipboard in hand like she was preparing to inspect the sunrise. I fired up Whisper, drifted across the lake, and passed her dock just slowly enough to let her catch my grin. She shouted something. Probably a threat. Maybe another policy. I couldn't hear her over the sound of my victory. But if I thought owning the lake would end it, I was wrong. Meredith didn't back down, she escalated. The next day, I found a violation notice duct taped to my mailbox. Apparently, my dock stain color clashed with shoreline aesthetics. Then she claimed I hosted unauthorized gatherings. Then my music Fleetwood Mac, for heaven's sake, was tonally disruptive. When someone stole my flamingo float and left a note reading decorum violation, I nearly bought a 30-foot inflatable Kraken out of spite. Instead, I got smarter. I started talking to neighbors. One of them mentioned Meredith's husband made renters sign waivers, cash only, no receipts. A few searches, some friendly emails, and I had the whole picture. Bob was running an illegal jet ski side hustle, and Meredith's vendetta was all about protecting it. Then came the emergency compliance review. I walked into the clubhouse in flip-flops and a Hawaiian shirt. Meredith led the session, acting like I'd smuggled uranium into the lake. She accused me of social fragmentation, claimed I was intimidating neighbors with technology and endangering fish wellness. But then Day, the oldest board member and a lifelong fisherman, raised his hand. I checked the paperwork, he said. Technically, Mitch owns the lake. He's not violating anything. Meredith froze for a beat, then spat. We should file against the water rights themselves. That's not how any of this works, Dave replied, exhausted. I leaned back and smiled. You know, it's funny. You're fighting harder against an electric jet ski than the fact your husband's running an illegal business out of your garage. The room went silent. Meredith turned all shades of fury. The meeting collapsed into chaos. Meredith tried pushing for a vote to ban me from the lake, but Dave shut it down. The other board members avoided eye contact. One woman even Googled, can HOA control private lakes, right there. After that, I took action. I hired a professional surveyor to mark the legal boundaries of the water I now owned. He installed small, tasteful signs that read, private waters electric use only. They were simple, unmistakable, legal. Meredith saw the signs and immediately called 911 like we were launching a missile silo. The cops showed up. I gave them the deed, the lawyer's letter, and smiled. Meredith screamed at the officers for 10 minutes. They left. One gave me a thumbs up. Then I launched Friends of the Lake, a free membership for residents who wanted to enjoy the water responsibly. No gas engines. No commercial activity. No Meredith-style drama. 30 people signed up in 3 days. Meredith's empire crumbled. Her husband's rentals were dead in the water, literally. She held a last-ditch HOA Lake Freedom rally. Only 5 people came. 2 left early when I cruised by on Whisper. She resorted to flyers. Claimed I was dumping battery acid. Called Whisper a deep state surveillance craft. I responded with environmental studies, legal clarifications, and a glowing letter from a local conservationist. She was losing the war and fast. Then one night, I heard the roar of a gas engine. Meredith was on one of Bob's clunky jet skis, flying across the lake without a life jacket, steering like a toddler on a sugar high. You're trespassing. I yelled. You can't trespass on public water. It's not public. Check the deed. She didn't listen. Tried to whip a dramatic turn. Slammed into a sandbar. Fell off. The water was waist deep, but her pride drowned completely. I filmed the whole thing. Not to humiliate her, okay, maybe a little, but to document the violation. I sent the footage to the county's environmental office. Meredith got fined and banned from the lake. A week later, a blog posted the headline, HOA Queen meets her match, electric justice prevails. It went neighborhood viral. Meredith deleted her online profile and stopped showing up to meetings. The board started shifting. Residents demanded transparency. Questions arose about HOA funds, small amounts missing here and there. Suddenly, I wasn't just the guy with the electric jet ski. I was the de facto leader of the HOA resistance. Then came the final blow. Meredith's cousin, posing as the HOA's lawyer, sent me a threatening letter about revoking my lake rights. My actual lawyer read it and burst out laughing. We didn't reply, we sent it to the county inspector instead. The audit that followed uncovered everything. Fake permits, budget repairs that funded jet ski parts, tax fraud, endangerment. The rental business was shut down. Fines poured in. At the next HOA meeting, the clubhouse was packed. A retired schoolteacher named Mrs. Lacey stood and calmly said, "I motion for the immediate resignation of the HOA vice president." Meredith tried to laugh it off. Mr. Ahmed, quiet and respected, stood up. "I second." The vote passed. Meredith didn't yell. She just gathered her papers and left. Dave took over. His first act? A formal apology to me. His second? Removing all aquatic restrictions. 3 weeks later, we held our first official lake day. Music, food trucks, sunset lanterns. It was peaceful, joyful, real. That lake wasn't just water anymore. It was a symbol of resistance, of change, of what happens when one stubborn man decides he won't be pushed around by mimosa-flinging dictators. And Whisper. She purred across the glassy surface of our lake like a queen. All I ever wanted was to ride my jet ski in peace. Turns out that peace just needed a little petty revenge and a lot of community to finally take root.